Never done one. We're gonna jump into some deep waters here
Mm-hmm.
in the next week. So any other thoughts that you have?
Yeah. So if you're doing lives, okay, here's one of the critical things. And Gigi just mentioned it. People jump in and they jump out. So if you're going to do lives, which is a very effective way of marketing yourself, but it has some flaws that we have to be very wary of. It's great because it is time immediate, right? There's a natural FOMO to a live, right? I want to be there live. That's why I want to be at the premiere of this movie. I want to be at this event in person. I want to be at the concert live. I don't just want the recording, right? There's a natural element of being present. So there's a couple quick things that make lives really crucial. One, opening up so that people can ask you questions. Right? One of the values of live is that somebody's actually there, they have an itch, give them the opportunity to scratch it. If you don't, the question becomes, why the hell did you do a live then? What was the point? Right? So that's a part of it. Um, you often want to do some sort of announcement or some sort of like little cool thing that's happening for you because it's the live. So this could be a new concept, even. This could be a new framework that you've been working on. This could be some sort of new product, right? Anything like that. And ultimately, part of what doing the live is about is also getting opinion, is sparking conversation on the live about the new thing, right? Here's my new framework. So Eason could do a live about saying, here's my new framework to attract leads with email. I'm going to reveal it live tomorrow at 10 a.m. So now his audience goes, ooh, I want to check this out. I want to be there live. And here's what I really want, you guys, is I'm going to do it live because I want to know how much you love it. Right? And so the live has purpose. So those are true things. Now, some of the flaws of lives, people pop in and out.
Mhm.
Okay. It's not something that's designed to be a recording as the thing. So people don't necessarily they can't stop, pause, and go backwards. So in a live, you tend to have to repeat things.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you're making some sort of offer or some sort of next step or call to action, which you should be doing in every piece of content you make, Gigi,
Yes.
then you want to repeat that.
Mhm.
So you want to say it early. So a tactic that I'm changing in my content, for example, is if I'm giving something away, like, hey, we'll find out how powerful your local brand is, right? In three simple questions, we'll find out how powerful your local brand is. If you want this diagnostic, ask me down below. Then I'll start with my content because people might not stick past 10 or 15 seconds. In fact, as we've all known, who are those who are doing content, Andrew can attest to this, I'm sure. How many people stick past his first 10 or 12 seconds of his videos? It drops off. It's like a stone, right?
Mhm.
Then you suddenly get this anywhere from maybe 3 to 5, 6, 7% of people that will stay almost through to the end. So what can you do to the 97% that are going to drop off pretty fast to give them that pull forward? So you want to make sure you're repeating your calls to action, repeating your frameworks. Okay.
Mhm.
And then the really critical thing that I have found with doing lives, and I haven't done a lot of them in the last 2 years. I did way more sort of 2023 and before when lives were really pushed by Meta, especially. I haven't done a whole lot of them since. But one of the things that I found that worked best for me was simply asking more questions and slowing down. And the reason I say ask more questions is because as we've talked about, Gigi, and I've talked to most of you guys about, is when you're making content and there's questions in the content, actually ask the question. Instead of going, would you guys really love to have a much better life these days? That's great because and you're rolling right through the question. If you roll right through the
Right.
question, you don't give Gary the opportunity to answer in his mind,
Mhm.
let alone out loud or with his fingers on his keys. Like he can't answer. right? So literally ask the question. And that will do two things. One, it will slow you down because you have to give space for the question. And two, it changes up your cadence, changes up the rhythm of your speech. Does that help, Gigi?
Absolutely. Thank you.
One of the things I want you guys to remember is that so in doing the studying that I'm doing, right? It's and I'll just be really blunt because you guys are awesome and you know that I mean this in the best of ways. It's highly manipulative stuff, right? It's highly enchanting stuff. So there's a thing that there's a concept that I want you to get your heads around. Ethical manipulation.
Mm.
Bradford, does your service make people's lives better? Yes. Okay. Michelle, does your service make those parents' lives way better and their child's? That should be a big yes, Michelle. Big yes. Come on, big yes. There we go. There's the smile. She's like, I think so. No, yes. Yes, yes. Right? So you have an obligation to pull out all the tools in your toolkit to ensure that they at least make a legitimate choice about buying from you or not. Does that make sense, Phil? Yeah. So when I talk about ethical manipulation, your words, Gigi, the cadence of you, the way you speak, and Gary can talk about this too, because this is a lot of NLP stuff, right? It is literally programming the person on the other side to be more receptive to what's coming out of your mouth.
Right?
Bradford watched a video from me the other day, and one of his responses was, "It's like, you were talking to me, dude. I don't know what you did in that video." And I didn't tell him during our sales meeting, but Bradford, these are skills that we teach, that we show you, because ultimately there's lots of things that are happening very subtly in that video to ensure that it works. There's vocal textures going on, there's changes in rhythm and speed. There is a way to use your voice and your words, my friends, and this will sound sort of scary, to change the heart rhythm of the person who's listening. And when you do that, they open up to being far more receptive to what it is that you're talking about. And you have an obligation to make them the offer. You do not get to choose whether they buy or not. You do get to choose on some level whether they stick around long enough to hear what you have to say. And guys, it takes practice. It takes work. It takes understanding how the human brain works, which is what we're going to touch on in just a few minutes, about at least a part of it. But all of it's in the same framework. It's in the same bucket. Okay. It's, as I said, ethical manipulation. You're trying to change one of the most profound things that they're going through in their brain.
I
Right?
think that's going to become my favorite word for a while.
What is?
Ethical manipulation. I love it.
Good. Good. Well, that's secret number two in my the presentation I'm working on, Gigi, is ethical manipulation. Okay. Cool. Good. So Gigi, use those tactics to rock your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that I need to step out and do the call to action. I think I was just trying to get some people, behind me first. And that's the next endeavor is, and I think that, that's why I was thinking the lives would be really good because then I'm getting people right there and I'm interacting with them
Hmm.
and then I will start because I want to start my pie program in the next few weeks. So
Yeah, that's great. I would encourage you guys too that when you're doing those types of things, like even when you're in, and Eason, this is especially important for people like you and I, right? that are, we get into sales calls, as it were, quite often. You don't want to solve too much in the sales call, right? You don't want to solve too much. You want to solve just enough to demonstrate your authority and expertise. You want to solve just enough. You want to give them the appetizer of the meal that is your business. You cannot give them the dinner.
Mhm.
And, those of us that are here, we all have really big hearts. We all really care, and we want to serve. And I know each and every one of you individually, that's a big part of why you're here, right? But the fact is, if Phil Conway gets into a sales call with somebody who wants to buy coaching and you start coaching them in that sales call, Phil, they'll wonder why they should buy. If you're just going to do it in a sales call, why would I buy from you?
Mhm.
So you have to give them frameworks and concepts, Gigi, right? Illustrate the
Yeah.
gaps so they become aware. And the best thing you can do for them is shift two things: some limiting beliefs that where they are is where they're going to stay stuck. You want to change that. And
Mhm.
then you want to make sure that you show them the gaps. If you're here and you want to get here, this is what's missing. So they get the removal of limiting beliefs is what I'm looking for, and clarity of what the real problem is. So basically, you give them hope and clarity.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at finding all the pain points.
That's right. Yeah, just do your best not to solve too many before they
Oh
become a
no,
client. Okay, good,
no.
good, good. Okay, anybody else have any other questions? We got time for one more. Any other challenges that have popped up for you in the last few weeks? We haven't done an office hour since early December, so basically the last month or so. Anything else popped up?
Yeah, I have one more question, Michael. Does because I don't I have because I've got so like involved with TikTok that I have kind of let my Instagram
Mm,
go. But they have lives. Does that work the same way? Do you know?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty close. All of these platforms want them to remain relatively the same, just with minor nuances, so that you feel comfortable going to any one of them.
Mhm.
Right? It's not in their best interest to make TikTok or Instagram super different than each other, because then you're gonna want to only do one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And just opening up more doors.
That's right. Yep. And take your lives, like use descript or whatever, repurpose those things, right? And then
Wait a minute. Say that take my lives.
yeah, so download your lives, use like descript, that tool that I recommend a lot of my Access Pass
Yeah,
members to
I
use,
have
right?
I have Descript.
Yeah, throw it in there, get the transcriptions or get the subtitles or whatever the thing put on there. And then even if you are capable of it, Gigi, like if anybody's looking at Descript and you want to do this, I think the paid for upgraded version of Descript isn't much. It's like 15, maybe $20 in a month or something like that. And it gives you Overlord, which is an AI tool that will help you chop up
Yeah, I
your.
have it. I think it's 35.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I figured I'd try it out for a
We use
while.
Descript
But
for our VIP clients so much for a lot of what we do to make things efficient and quick that I don't know what the regular price is.
and what will Overlord do? I haven't
It
used it.
hacks up. It helps you chop out smaller sections from your pieces and gives you
Oh.
suggestions on like this 60-second piece is really good. This one, right?
Right. So that could actually become
They
short,
they become reels. Yeah.
right? Reels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So then you can take
How
your
exciting.
your live and use it. Now,
Mhm.
remember one of the things, and I was just talking to Frank Menard, so
Mhm.
Phil, Gary, and Bradford, him and I were chatting about his videos. Remember, you guys, if you're going to do that, quite often you're not putting a headline or a title or a WIIFM on the front of those videos because nobody like you're taking a chunk of a longer video, right? If you're doing a 90-second video, and you're using the action script, for example, it gives you headline, clarifying statement, tell them who, like you've got a structure to follow, right? So somebody knows why they're watching. If you pull a 60-second clip out of a 15, 25-minute live, that 60-second clip might not have anything at the front end that tells why somebody should watch. Everybody with me on this?
Can't you put, I haven't done this, but can't you on the, I know for TikTok, you can, when you, right before you post, and you do all the hashtags and whatever,
Yep.
that it gives you an option to edit your, I think that front, your
The
first,
thumbnail.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so a lot of programs don't have that option, Gigi. So, like if you're using it for Facebook and Instagram Reels or Stories, for example, what I recommended to Frank was you either put a title across the top as the video starts or across the bottom, wherever looks best, that says why someone should watch it, right? So it's not like you start the video, you're speaking, right?
Yeah,
But there's a title across the top that says 3 tips to do X or the reason why I started my TikTok channel or whatever the solution, whatever that video is about, right? Whatever problem it solves. You put that as a little bit of a floating title across the top. So it's there written. So when someone's scrolling, most of these social media feeds, they pull the first frame of the video as the thumbnail. So if that's
yeah,
the first frame of the video, it looks more like a crappy version of a YouTube thumbnail that's up there, but at least it tells somebody why they should watch,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's
No,
it's very
and that,
simple to do.
and they may read that before
That's
they
right.
actually are even listening to you. So now they have to
Correct.
like play it again. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
gotcha.
if you have that hanging
Good.
there for 10 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever it is, and then it vanishes, at the
Perfect.
bottom, your subtitles can start, right? The
Yeah.
transcription can start at the bottom. And so, yeah, somebody, sitting on the potty can, as we all know this happens, none of you are not guilty of this. None. Right? Right? Sure enough, the title comes across, and then you just start reading the thing. You're like, oh, yeah, this Gigi lady, she's pretty damn smart. I like that, right? I'm going to stay watching this, or I'm going to save this, or I'm just going to sit here longer than I need to. Yeah, exactly. Right? Yep.
Great idea. I like that.
Anyway, so hopefully Frank starts using that. Pumps it up. He's got lots of short video. We need to know why to watch.
No, that's great. I'm glad you said that about Overlord because I haven't used that in Descript, but what I have used of Descript is pretty neat. Like it can
Yeah,
definitely
I
open.
like Descript quite a bit simply because it's easy, right? It's based on, how much, what the text, and you don't have to be a video editor to use it. So it's good.
Mhm. I'll see if I
Okay,
can figure that
cool.
out then.
So, before we dive into this little quick thing I want to talk about, you guys, um, any really quick eureka moments or aha moments from the group share or the questions that we asked? Anything pop out for you guys as something that they discovered or found?
I like the idea about the touches and all the ways that we could automate that. I think that
Hmm.
was brilliant. Um, I like the ethical manipulation with Gigi. Gigi, I like that. I'm happy to hear that you're not going to run off and be a CIA agent.
Just got to learn from the best, man.
What was the name? Does that guy have a book?
I'll have to take a look.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Do you remember his name?
Um,
That's okay. Another day.
Andrew something, Andrew Bustamante. Anyway, he's got a YouTube channel. It's pretty cool. Everyday Spy, I think it's called.
Everyday Spy.
Yeah.
Wow. How's your wife like that?
She doesn't know. What else, you guys? What else popped up? Anything else jump out as something that you were like, ah, I can use that, or that makes perfect sense to me?
Yeah, I appreciate Gigi asking the question about the lives because I'm thinking maybe I should do the lives to announce my new business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm. Love it, Michelle.
Yeah. And I've also been talking to people about like being a co-host for me so that they can kind of watch the comments so I don't have to do like reading all the comments
Hmm.
as I'm trying, like I don't know, just also so I don't feel like I'm completely alone, I guess.
No, it's good.
Like,
Yep. Yep. Very good. A lot of the time, especially on Instagram, you can do some really cool co-hosting stuff too, right? So you can, and then it gets broadcast out to each of your networks, which is kind of fun.
wait a minute, say that again.
So on Instagram, there's some, oh, you're welcome, Eason. Cheers, buddy. On on uh on Instagram, you can do some coordinated stuff, right? I can't
Yeah,
remember
so
the
I think
exact
I
term.
saw that on TikTok too, that you can sign up to be a co-host.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know on Instagram it gets broadcast out to that person's audience as well as yours.
Ah, okay.
Hmm. Yeah. So a lot of people will do dual live stuff because then it's being streamed out to both networks.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Hmm.
Because that was one of the things that I felt like I was running into because I got in with this group seven thing and it's like everybody's group seven. So now they're reposting my stuff, but it's, like but I've seen that I'm getting at least half of my people still coming off of the For You page. So it's still getting out there.
Good.
But I was thinking that the lives would be better because now I'm bringing in just
The
anybody.
the thing with marketing, and most people have heard me say this before, your business is your laboratory, Gigi. So you've got to experiment with these tools and with your messaging and with your audiences to see what works. And what
Mhm.
works for Michelle might not be what works for Gigi, or what works for Gigi might not be what works for Michelle, right? Like all this stuff is your audience, your specific message, how they're receiving it. And this is why marketing is a testing ground. It's a constant laboratory of work. And
Mhm.
the unfortunate part with how fast things do change, okay, especially in the marketing space and in the social media space, stuff that worked 6 months ago might not work anymore the same way it did. From a like sheer software like logistics perspective, all the way through to a how things are actually being marketed perspective. We all remember the ages of what was that? There was some. Remember there was some sort of group video thing you could do when COVID first hit through the iPhone. I don't even remember what, like through iPhones or some sort of broadcasts. I don't know, some sort of rooms that you could get into, and they were really popular for a long time, and now that's completely gone. Right? Yeah, it feels remembering a little bit. Like I can't remember what the name of it was, but a whole bunch of people started using this. Right? So um things like Snapchat pop up and then they dilute to different markets. Like all the stuff sort of tweaks and changes. TikTok will be super prominent for 6 or 7 or 9 months, and then suddenly Instagram will release something and it kind of rivals it for another little while. So the tools change and the tactics sometimes have to change. What shouldn't ever change is the strategy. That's what shouldn't change, right? The strategy being you are putting yourself front and center, Gigi. You are building a personal brand. You're all about creating relationships with people so they can feel safe and trust you to then come to you to help them solve XYZ. That's a strategy,
Right.
right? You're not out there hawking cheap, therapy sessions, right? Get a
Mhm.
discount for this, get 50%. Like that's not your strategy. Your strategy is about building a relationship first and trust, right? So
Yeah.
that doesn't have to change ever. The tactic to deliver it will shift over time. It has to because the tools and the elements change. Right? Who knows? In 5 years from now, we might all have some sort of hologram creator in our houses that generates a 6 foot version of Gigi in front of us that's talking, right? And live. Like, we don't know. We have no idea. Literally, we don't know. Even the people who think they know don't know.
And
So
instead of SpaceX, it'll be Robot X.
yeah, right. Like, but the fact is that
X is you.
yeah, the strategy itself doesn't have to change, right? You're using content to build trust, to build a powerful personal brand that's going to attract people that need a specific problem solved.
Yeah.
Good. Does that make sense to everybody? Show a thumbs up, bro. That makes sense? Okay, cool. So, everybody got their pens ready here? We're ready for this next stage? Okay. So, I want to touch on a very deep subject, which I encourage you guys to all keep pursuing and unpacking. I know I certainly have dove quite deep into this subject. And it's a big part of what our marketing stuff does and how content to cash is actually designed. But it's called neuromarketing. And so the premise behind neuromarketing is literally understanding the physical structure of how the brain operates to be able to input the message that you want to deliver so that somebody becomes ethically manipulated, right, Gigi? To then open up to our message. Okay? So, who here, and although Kat's not on video, I know she's going to raise her hand, has tried to pitch or sell something based on the science, the facts, the concepts behind the thing? Right? Yeah. Phil says yes. Michelle says yes. Right? Right? Gary's nodding. You're all smart people. Okay? So you understand the thing that you're pitching. And so what winds up happening is you're selling them based on the facts and the science behind what it is that operates it, right? It's like attempting to sell me a Porsche based on the horsepower and the way the tires touch the road, right? And the way the steering works. Like this thing, I mean, the Porsche really moves. Like these wide tires do this and the steering is this way, right? Is that likely to sell me the Porsche? What do we think? Is that likely to sell me? Am I going to open up my wallet, part with a couple $100,000 to buy the Porsche based on how the tires grip the road? Phil
If I'd
says,
taken a ride, maybe.
okay. So, but Gary pinned it. Well, you took a ride. So, what a ride is an experience. An experience is what, Gary? It is a set of feelings.
Yes, it is. And it's
about the Porsche, right?
and it is all about the feeling of the ride.
That's right.
I had it in the vet. And
That's right.
you start doing 140 miles an hour, and the whole car just starts sinking
Sinks.
to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And you just feel every little bit of the motion and
That's right. Yeah.
the curves. And curves are wonderful.
And you imagine yourself crossing that checkered line and receiving the cup, and those people coming out
There
and
you go.
taking your helmet off and everything else. Like Bradford's laughing away.
Come on.
That's what happens. You're like, I'm going to get milk. And do we need to go get anything else today? I'll go out for every single item in the grocery store individually. Right?
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake. That's right. Whatever we need to go get, I'm going to get it. Right? And they're rewarding me every time I show up at the Shoppers Drug Mart. That's right. So but the fact is it's the feeling that pitches it.
Mm-hmm.
But so many of us, we actually try to access the brain from the wrong angle. So I want to take us back, like 80 odd thousand years, to the fact that human beings developed, the deepest part of our brain, what we would call like the reptile part of our brain, the inner part of our brain. And its function was pretty primary, obviously to keep the heart pumping, to keep the limbs moving, to keep the food going in, right? To procreate. But the real fundamental, one of the other big fundamentals was trust, fear.
Yeah.
Okay. And so these are things that, like this deep part of the brain is what signals initially. It is always active. It's looking at me right now. It's making a judgment call on me, for you, on your behalf in this moment. And it's doing it constantly. It never turns off. It puts you in space, right? When you're about to fall out of bed, like you've rolled out of bed, right? And you wake up as you're tumbling to the ground. This is the part of the brain that's noticing that. It's deep. It's primal. It's primitive. We're all with me on this?
Mhm.
Okay. And it never turns off. Always functioning, always active, always watching, right? It's why you spot stuff on the outside of your vision. Okay. It's why when you're walking into an alley and you see a dark shape at the end, certain hormones get released in your body, right? Women know this very well. It's why and especially, so this is especially the case for different genders. Guys, if another guy is standing opposite you rather than sort of shoulder to shoulder with you, it's a different chemical reaction. Think about it. When you're talking to another man, do you want to stand shoulder to shoulder with them, or do you want to stand facing them, front on? What do you guys think? What do you think?
Face to face.
Never, Andrew. Always shoulder to shoulder. Face to face is confrontation. Mano a mano. Always, every time. That's the irony of it. Right? If you want to make a good connection with a man, stand at an angle with him.
Mm.
Standing face to face with him is me versus you. It's battle. And
That's
you
like
can't control it, my friends. You don't get to control it. It's primal. It's deeply wired in. This is ancient wiring that we've been reprinting into our brains for tens of thousands of years, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of generations. It's not going anywhere. The way your heart pumps is the way your heart pumps. The way your body reacts to things and releases chemicals is printed there. It's best not to try and change it. It's best to understand it. So you can ethically use it to, what do we do with our ethical what, Gigi?
Manipulation.
There we go. Ladies, if a man stands shoulder to shoulder with you, is that comfortable, or would you prefer him to stand away and in front of you?
In front.
You bet, every time. Every single time. GTFO of MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's important. Now, so ladies, if you want to make a good connection with a dude, stand like a dude. Not in the way you posture, but in the positioning of where your bodies are at. Right? That'll automatically take his guard down immediately.
Mm.
Men, if you want to make a good relationship and a good impression on a woman, do not stand beside her.
Mm.
Stand in front of her where she can fully see you. Both arms, both legs, everything. It's primal. It's ancient, you guys. This is protector. This is keep my wife and keep my family, keep my cave safe behavior. And the reason I'm talking about it is because that's exactly what's active when someone is scrolling their social media feed. That's exactly what's active when they're looking at their email. That's exactly what's active when they're meeting you at a networking event. Okay? It doesn't turn off. It's always, always present.
Good.
Okay? Critical to remember. The next part of the brain, okay, that opens up, the mid part of the brain, is the emotion center of the brain. Okay? It's the emotional center of the brain. This is the part of the brain that tells us how to feel about everything. This is the part of the brain that we need to use our ethical manipulation to access. We have to go through the back door, bypass the safeguards of the reptile brain, the deep brain, get into the limbic system, right? The emotional part of the brain. As we've mentioned this word thousands of times. What do we access in the emotional part of the brain? What is the thing that people tell themselves over and over and over again? They tell themselves a what about a situation?
Story.
A story.
Story. Yeah.
Okay? In that part of the brain lives their story, where every single limiting belief got planted by parents, teachers, brothers, sisters, experiences. That's where they all live. And my friends, if you don't think that this is the way great marketing works, you're fooling yourselves. You see people or you hear people and they resonate with you, and you're like, why does this person sound like they're speaking directly to my soul? Like, what is going on here? Why is this working on me, right? If you're, as I've said this to Gary before, if you're not watching the trick of the illusionist, but you're paying attention to how he's doing it or she is doing it, right? You start to wonder, why is this working on me? Why am I looking over here when I should be watching their hands? Like, what's going on here? This is because they've accessed these parts of the mind. They've done the right things to get past your alertness, right? The first part of the brain, the reptile part of the brain. Now they're talking to the emotional center of the brain. Because as Gary said, you don't buy the Porsche because of the tires, you buy the Porsche because of the way it feels on the road. The story you tell yourself about what that means, about who you are because you have a Porsche. And everybody knows the background on my computer, so we all know that I'm highly susceptible to this particular metaphor. Okay? So then we access the emotional part of the brain because that's where the story lives. And we can ethically manipulate the story because then the logic part comes in. That's the final part of our brain that is formulated highly over the last 10,000 years, that has turned what we now look at as human beings into human beings, right? Is what made sure that the Homo sapien took out the Neanderthal. Is the big part, the heavy part, the big monstrous part of our brains, the big outer layer, right? The frontal cortex, right? All of this stuff. That is the logic brain. That is the brain that's constantly active, that's doing the math, that's making sense of the world around us, right? Our brains are taking billions of pieces of information in every single minute, and they're translating that information into exactly what we need to function right now, right? We all know this. By show of thumbs up, everybody knows this is what their brain is doing, right? And so to do this, it has this big, huge, fat part of the brain that is constantly operating and assessing information. But that brain is entirely dictated to by what we might call the subconscious or the emotional part of the brain, right? It is, so if the reptile part of the brain is the dirt in which we plant the idea, right? Or the soil in which the seed is going to grow, the seed is the story. And that will dictate what grows through the logic brain. Does that make sense, everybody? So with what we're talking about today, the sale starts in the instinctual brain. It grows with narrative and story and changing limiting beliefs and adjusting people's perspective on life and things through the mid part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain. And then it bears fruit in the logic part of the brain. I am never going to buy the Porsche because of its fuel mileage. But at some point, I'm going to probably logic myself to going, you know what? There's worse cars on the planet. I could have bought a Land Rover. That's way worse, right? I could have done this. That's way worse. Somehow, I'm convincing myself that something that's going to guzzle gasoline, right? Like a thirsty camel makes sense to me. Like I'm going to logic that, right? And we do crazy things. We'll go like, you know what? I can go fast enough that I'm actually going to add 10 minutes to every day worth of extra work just because I've bought this car. Like I'm going to get to where I need to go that much fast. Like it's stupid. It's ridiculous. But we've germinated the idea in the emotional part of the brain and it bears fruit. But so many times we sell the other way, don't we? We sell through the top. And that is what the challenge is. Now, any questions about that before I just take us to the next stage of this? Has anybody thought about it this way before? Sort of, sort of.
There's another guy there. I think he calls himself a mentalist. Has some great stuff on YouTube. Darren Brown, Derren,
Okay.
Brown like the color.
And very similar concept.
Uh, it's it. There's one on marketing where how he got the MBA marketers to produce the ad campaign that he expected them to produce after half an hour of work. It's great. It's great.
Cool. I'll have to check him out.
Here,
Darren,
yeah.
right, Gary? Darren Brown?
Darren Brown, Derren.
Gotcha. All right.
Brown. And there's a couple of different ones that I've seen already that are just amazing.
Okay.
Mind control, messing with minds on the London Underground, getting forget where to get off their stop.
Yep. Yep. So this is once again, as we talk about, you're using ethical manipulation to market your stuff. But we have to understand the process, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where you are going to become, I am unconsciously incompetent. Okay. In other words, I have no idea how bad I am at actually doing this. You become consciously incompetent. You're like, wow, I realize how challenging this is and how I need to work on it. Consciously competent, meaning that you're like, okay, I'm getting good at this. It's taking a lot of work and I really got to think about it while I'm doing it, but I'm getting good at it. And then unconsciously competent, right? The master level where you're like, I'm doing this, it's working, and I really don't have to think very hard about it anymore. It's just practice, understanding and practice. Okay. So now how do we do it? Right? The next question is, how do we do this? We understand that coming in from the top, trying to logic your way to pitching somebody something or getting them to watch your stuff or getting them to change things is challenging, right? We understand this, right? Everybody's with me on that. This is a tough thing to do. So how do we change things? Well, the fact of the matter is there's 3 stages, obviously, right? So the first stage, the instinctual stage, the reptile brain stage requires 2 things, okay? Attention. You have to get their attention, okay? And then you have to clearly state whether this is for them or not for them. That's how you do this. In other words, you've got my reptile brain's attention, and then the immediate thing the reptile brain does is says, is this for me or is this not for me? Should I eat this? Should I not eat this? We with me on this? Like that's its next stage it's going to do. Does this help me? Does this not help me? Okay? That's what that part of the brain does. Emotional part. Okay? And now here's the great thing. Once you guys see, now that you know this information, okay, you're going to see it everywhere. I promise you, you will see this multiple times today. In content that works on you, in ads that work on you, in the way somebody talks to you, right? In the way an email operates when you read it, okay? In the connection that you might have with another person and chatting with them, you will see this repeated over and over and over again, right? So instinct, attention, and then ultimately for me, not for me. That's what your reptile brain wants to know because it's got to know whether or not we should go to the next stage, which is the emotional brain. Okay? Emotional brain. Connection and trust. That's what the emotional brain is for. connection and trust. You can also use the word empathy there, right, as a substitute for connection. But I want to make sure we use a broad enough term. And as we've talked about before, story is the best way to enter that space. Right? The fact is, the story you tell yourself in regards to nearly anything becomes its reality. I remember Tony Robbins has that great little story where he talks about the stranger that shows up when he's 15, maybe 14 years old, and they don't have any food. And it's Thanksgiving, I think, or it's Christmas. And the stranger shows up with like a couple bags of food and says, "Here." And his one of his many dads at the time looks at the stranger and is like, "I don't accept charity. Get out of my house." That's his story about that moment. That's that man's story. Tony's story about that moment was, what did he say? Something like strangers can do good, right? Or strangers can help. That was his story about the moment. Same moment. Exact same moment. Completely different stories. And they've obviously taken both of these men, Tony and his dad. I'm sure that man's passed by now, but whoever that man was, right? On completely different life trajectories. So we fundamentally know that the story is the thing that affects how we see things, right? We're all in agreement here? And in fact, I just did it. Didn't I? Use the story to illustrate the point. Got the reptile brain's attention, use the story to illustrate the point. Now I'm going to solidify the point, right? By saying these are the series of stages that we walk somebody through. In the final stage, okay, so you've got instinct brain, emotion brain, logic brain. Logic brain requires rationale and status or new reality. That's what it wants. Every category that is the outcome of what it is that you're doing with a sale, with a piece of content, with your email, with talking to somebody on the street, eventually ends up in status, right? Rationale and or new reality. So we have the journey laid out here. So and this is a lot to think about. I get it. It's logical, like it makes a ton of sense, but there's a lot going on. You're like, oh my gosh, how do I do all this, right? Okay, here's the thing, you guys. You have the action script tool actually does it every single time on repeat. Okay, and funny enough, I understood this concept well enough to create the action script, but I didn't even understand it well enough until about 3 months ago to realize what I was even doing with it. You know what I mean? I was unconsciously able to pull this off on some level. So the part is that action script, A, stands for attention grabbing headline. If we go back to our instinct brain, what's the first thing we need to do to activate the instinct brain? Anybody write this down? What was the first thing we need to do? That's right. Bradford's like, you're looking. Yeah. Attention. Okay. The next thing, is this for me? Is this not for me? In the C, it is clarifying statement. Right? You know what I'll do is I'll open this up for a second here and bring up the action script so that people can see what I'm talking about, because that'll make it easier. There we are. Okay. Share screen. Here we go. Attention grabbing headline. Okay. Clarifying statement. What it solves and who it's for. In other words, is this for me or is this not for me? This is what the reptile brain wants to know. Emotional brain. Trust, empathy, connection, Tell them who you are and why you're qualified to help them. That's trust. Inspire them with a quick story. That's emotion. And then finally, you get to the big fat logic brain, the thing that needs to make the final, thinks that it's making the final decision, right? That the person at the other side of the conversation feels like they're in control. Because they are, ultimately. We've just nudged them the right direction, right? You can walk all you want. I've just made sure that you're pointed at the exact way that I want you to walk. So then you outline a process or a solution. Okay. So this is giving them the rationale as to why what you're doing or what you're offering can work, or why your thought process on this makes sense, right? Or the new reality for them comes to next steps. Status increase, new reality, next steps. And of course, there's tons of training on this. This is the exact framework that you get. And as Access Pass members, this is the AI tool. It writes these scripts for you. Multiple versions, say, here's the problem I solve. This is who I am. And it just gets to work. Of course, you nudge the framework a little bit based on you and what you want to input. But ultimately, you are given 95% of everything you need just by using this framework and the AI tool. And that is essentially how we properly sell, market, convince, enchant, ethically manipulate anybody. And it's just a repeat. It's just practice. It's just understanding the way all the wiring works, right? And that you realize when you're in a debate with somebody, when you're starting to argue with them, chances are it's because you're trying to get in from the top. And we've got to find our way to get in from the underside. You're trying to convince them using fact and science. My logic versus your logic. And we see how that plays out across the world every single day, don't we? We're not listening. Okay. So that ends this particular teaching element of today. How was that for you guys? Was that helpful? Yeah? What are people's feelings about this? Like, does that feel like it's like really, really fantastic and they absolutely love it? Does it feel really, really overwhelming? Does it feel, are you angry? Some people I've talked to us about, they're like, I'm pissed. Like, you're telling me that, like, I'm that programmable? It's like, well, yeah, yeah. Right? Like ultimately, it's just wiring, right? So I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts.
I feel like in the scripts that you've written up for me, or the tool has written up for me, uh, I could see it as you're describing it going down the action acronym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great reminder to keep focused on the sequential order of creating that story and using the story in a way that, well, I understand it's ethical manipulation. I'm not going to say I want to manipulate. That word can sound charged up, you know.
Yeah, sure.
However, it's manipulating another person simply to take a different point of view. So especially, if they're closed-minded, it can help them to softly open their mind. And then
Mhm.
you have another conversation and then do some more ethical manipulation from
That's right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You bet. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Bradford, how about you, buddy? This is the first time you've been on one of these calls, and we've unpacked some of this behind the curtain for the Wizard of Oz kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think when I reflect on some of the processes that have worked, a lot of this framework kind of falls into it. Um, for whatever reason, initially the concept of manipulation, I don't know, just pinches me a little bit of the wrong
Sure
way.
it does. Yeah.
But there is, I mean, when you think about all that we do day to day, I mean, we're obviously looking out for ourselves and our survival to some degree, and we have to manipulate around us to survive. So, um, I'll work on the whole concept of ethical manipulation. But thanks you guys for all of you smiling about it and glorifying it because it definitely helped because I was a little uneasy about it initially. So.
Nice.
But no, yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Also, hearing this also brings to mind too, because what I've always envisioned is Bob Proctor was always a teacher with the stick figure,
Hmm.
understanding the concept and the vision of the mind. It's always right in front of me. It's right here. I'm looking at that. It's like, okay, now I have to weigh a method to tap into the subconscious because it's the inside out game. We got to be channeling from the inside out, from the heart up to the brain, not the brain down. And that's
That's right.
and the brain down is how it's not going to work.
Yeah. Because you're going to bang into all of their predetermined beliefs, right? That's the tricky part, is you're going to run into all of the predetermined walls and frameworks that have kept that person exactly where they are today. And ultimately, Bradford, you want to be there to help them, right? And we talked a little bit about this, I think you and I in our sales call, but the fact is it's like the amount of trust that has to build up for somebody, right? Because Bradford helps like elderly people, for example, in their estates, and he goes into their homes and acts as basically a conduit for a whole bunch of other home services so that they can just talk to Bradford. They can just use Bradford and they don't have to talk to a gardener. They don't have to a lawn guy. They don't have to talk to anyway. So he does all that, right? He centralizes that. But the amount of trust it requires for somebody, 72-year-old man to invite him into his home to admit that he can't do these things anymore, right? To, on some level, be it verbalized or not, admit that he's worried about being taken advantage of. And then to like the amount of trust that has to build up to invite that person in. Like Michelle's, in the advocacy for children business, the amount of work that has to be put in to a family, to a mom or a dad or the two of them together to trust Michelle to hand over their children's IEP, to review the document, to take Michelle's word at what to do next with their child's education. We grossly underestimate the amount of trust it takes to get someone to take action on what it is that we do because you guys don't solve small problems. You're not selling someone a freaking hamburger. So it's part of my job, Bradford, is to ethically manipulate you to realize the weight and the responsibility of what it is that you do. Michelle and I were talking about that word yesterday, responsibility, right? You have an ethical obligation to go and pitch. Therefore, you have an obligation to open them up, to help them change. Or else they're going to stay stuck, they're going to stay in pain, and you are going to have to sit on the sidelines realizing you could have helped them, but it would have made you uncomfortable. And that's the shame that you've got to live with. Didn't want to stay disciplined enough, didn't want to learn this stuff, didn't want to be uncomfortable, didn't want to invest the time, didn't want to invest the money. And now all these families that I could have helped and I could have, done really awesome stuff for, they all have to stay suffering. I think back, you guys, to the fact that Just About Pets has helped over 300,000 people with their dogs and their cats. 300,000. Can you imagine if my mom didn't have the guts to open up that little grooming salon in the back room of our house and put her life savings into buying some grooming equipment and, doing some child slave labor to get us out there with our puppy dog eyes, marketing her company for her. Like, what if she didn't do those things? So it is, I mean, Andrew's a brilliant mortgage broker. It behooves him to get his ass out there, to market like crazy, to use what we've learned about today to attract the leads to him because they need his help. And if he doesn't, he's going to hear the stories. It's like that great quote from Les Brown, where he said, "My worst nightmare is laying on my deathbed being surrounded by all the things that I didn't do." And saying, "I showed up for you, but you didn't show up for me." Right? Okay, cool. So this is going to wrap up office hours. Everybody get good value out of today? Yeah, some good stuff. Okay, awesome sauce. So quickly. Next week is a time to thrive on Thursday, you guys, and it's all about stories. So time to thrive. The education portion of next week's time to thrive will obviously do our accountability sessions, our checkpoints, check-ins, our roundtable coaching sessions. But the education portion for next week is once again diving into the stories that work. What are the fundamental 5, 6 stories that you need in your business to make sure that it's being marketed properly, right? Personal stories, customer testimonial stories. What are they? How should they be framed? What are the 5 key story arcs that you want to use to make sure these stories are immediately trustworthy? Right? Like the Slaying the Dragon story, the Quest story. How do you use those specific frameworks to really take your story and be able to use it properly? 2 weeks after that, magnetic branding. So building that powerful magnetic personal brand. Then the 2 weeks after that is profitability secrets. Right? Making sure that your business is thriving and profitable, knowing where those pitfalls and black holes of cash are, because they creep into our businesses very easily. So profitability. So that's what the next basically 5 weeks of time to thrives are. And of course, we'll have office hours in between. Okay. So give each other a round of applause. I want to say thank you so much for Bradford and Easton, who's gone. But I think Carl's still with us over the phone. So hopefully you got good value out of today. And thanks so much for joining us.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Carl. So have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. And please do send Darinka some love. It's only been a week, so it's pretty rough. And if anybody can donate, you can still find the GoFundMe page on my Facebook page. So to help out her daughter's family that lost their house and a child in that horrifying fire. So send her lots of love, you guys, and right back lots of love towards you from me. Gary, give me 5 minutes, buddy, and then I'll just come right back in. Okay.
I'm going to log out and I'll log back in.
Okay, sounds good. All right, guys.
Have
Have
a
a
good night,
wonderful Thursday.
Bye, guys.
Ciao
Take
for now,
care.
y'all.
Thank you.